I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats. When I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
$250 million, box office $43 million. Oh, but it's only been 2 days, give it a chance. No, I'm not gonna give it a chance. I'm not even talking about that number. Because like all the flops are unsurprising at this point. Something is going on behind the scenes with almost every major animation, video game, and movie studio that they're doing this intentionally or something. I don't fucking know. I'm not even gonna talk about this. People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
Alright guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now, first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm. Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way. That people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
What happens when a dream role turns into a nightmare? For Rachel Zegler, starring in Disney's Snow White was supposed to be her big break, the kind of opportunity that defines careers and cements legacies. But instead of basking in the glow of success, she found herself at the center of a digital witch trial, facing an avalanche of criticism, memes, and even death threats. The backlash wasn't just limited to online trolls. It permeated every corner of her professional life, from box office numbers to strained relationships with co-stars and industry insiders. Her once promising rise as Hollywood's fresh new face quickly spiraled into one of the most talked about controversies in recent memory. So what went wrong? How did a project meant to showcase her talent become the catalyst for such widespread ridicule and career jeopardy? The answer lies not only in the choices made, but also in how they were received by an unforgiving public. Rachel Zegler hoped to silence her critics once and for all, aiming to reclaim control of the narrative surrounding her role in Disney's live-action Snow White. In a now-viral video filmed from what appeared to be her bedroom, a setting meant to evoke authenticity and vulnerability, the actress stared directly into the camera with a mix of frustration and defiance. Her voice wavered as she insisted that, despite the relentless wave of online hate she had endured, people still showed up, still lined up, and rallied behind her work. At times, her tone carried the weight of teary-eyed vulnerability, while at others, it shifted into something sharper, borderline passive-aggressive indignation, as though she were daring her detractors to keep doubting her. She spoke passionately, almost pleadingly, about how audiences would always find value in art, no matter the noise surrounding it. But instead of redemption, Rachel's attempt at defending herself backfired spectacularly. Within minutes, snippets of the video were ripped apart, dissected, and repurposed by creators across social media platforms. TikTok users stitched together reaction videos, comedic skits mocking her delivery, and memes exaggerating her expressions. What was intended as a heartfelt defense quickly spiraled into an internet-wide spectacle, fueling even more ridicule and criticism. Far from quelling the backlash, Rachel had unknowingly handed her critics a gold mine, amplifying their voices and further entrenching herself in controversy. When the box office numbers finally came in, they painted a grim and undeniable picture of failure. Despite an astronomical budget of $250 million, Snow White opened to a stunningly weak $45 million domestically. For a Disney live-action remake, especially one that carried the historic legacy of the company's very first animated film, this figure was nothing short of shocking. Industry experts had anticipated strong returns, given Disney's track record with similar projects like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. But instead, Snow White faltered right out of the gate. To put it into perspective, compare this performance to The Little Mermaid, another live-action remake released by Disney that faced its own share of controversies. Despite mixed reactions online and debates about casting choices, The Little Mermaid still managed to pull in a healthy $95 million during its opening weekend, a number more than double what Snow White achieved. Box office analysts weren't just concerned, they were utterly stunned. Some went so far as to call this Disney's biggest miscalculation in years, labeling Snow White a flop almost immediately after its release. The underwhelming turnout signaled something deeper. Audiences simply weren't connecting with the film, or perhaps with its star. Theater chains reacted swiftly, quietly pulling the movie from their biggest screens within days and replacing it with higher-performing titles. By its second week, some locations had dropped the film entirely. For a studio known for dominating the theatrical market, this level of failure was uncharted territory, leaving both industry insiders and fans questioning how things went so wrong. Longtime Disney fans were left feeling deeply insulted, as though their cherished childhood memories had been casually dismissed. Parents expressed their frustration, stating they wouldn't take their kids to see a movie where the lead actress openly disrespected the original classic that had shaped generations. Many grandparents took to TikTok and other social platforms to share heartfelt stories about why the 1937 Snow White had touched them so profoundly during their own childhoods. They explained how it wasn't just a movie but a piece of cultural heritage, something they wanted to pass down to their grandchildren. For them, Rachel Zegler's dismissive remarks felt like an attack on the values and nostalgia tied to the film. Even neutral viewers, who might not have initially had strong feelings about the remake, began joining the chorus of criticism. It wasn't just her words that drew backlash. Her overall attitude throughout the press tour became a lightning rod for complaints. Clips of her interviews resurfaced, highlighting what many perceived as arrogance or indifference. Words like smug, entitled, and out of touch dominated comment sections across YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. The collective outrage grew louder, fueled by a sense of betrayal from someone entrusted with reimagining such a beloved story. What could have been seen as a bold artistic choice instead came off as disrespectful, alienating not only die-hard Disney loyalists but also casual fans who simply expected humility and respect for the source material. This widespread reaction underscored how personal these films are to audiences and how fragile the line is between modernizing a classic and dismantling its legacy entirely. Then came the Oscars, a night that should have been a triumphant celebration for Rachel Zegler, marking her arrival as a leading lady on one of Hollywood's biggest stages. Instead, it became yet another moment of awkward tension and public scrutiny. Rachel walked the red carpet alongside her Snow White co-star Gal Gadot, a pairing that was supposed to exude camaraderie and mutual support. But from the moment they stepped into the spotlight, something felt off. Photos and videos captured a palpable disconnect between the two actresses. Gal stood stiffly beside Rachel, her body language visibly reserved. She barely acknowledged Rachel during their joint appearances, avoiding eye contact and keeping physical distance whenever possible. Observers online noticed immediately, dissecting every frame of footage with a mix of curiosity and criticism. Body language experts wasted no time analyzing the dynamic between the two stars. Some pointed out how Gal subtly angled her body away from Rachel during interviews, a classic sign of discomfort or disengagement. Others highlighted the forced smiles and lack of genuine interaction, contrasting sharply with the warmth Gal usually radiates at such events. Gossip blogs quickly picked up on the apparent frostiness, speculating about everything from professional rivalry to personal grievances. It wasn't long before headlines like "Gal Gadot distances herself from Rachel Zegler" began dominating entertainment news cycles. Insiders later confirmed what many had suspected. Gal Gadot, while contractually obligated to promote Snow White, made a conscious decision to limit her association with both the project and its embattled star. According to sources close to the production, Gal reportedly grew frustrated with the negative press surrounding the film and Rachel's handling of the mounting backlash. While she fulfilled her promotional duties out of professionalism, insiders claim she has since chosen to quietly distance herself from the project entirely. This move only added fuel to the fire, further isolating Rachel in an already hostile environment. The stark contrast between Gal's polished, composed demeanor and Rachel's increasingly defensive posture underscored the growing divide, not just between the two actresses, but also within the broader context of the film's reception. For Rachel, this public display of estrangement was another blow to her already fragile standing in Hollywood. At a time when she desperately needed allies, the absence of even a gesture of solidarity from someone of Gal's stature spoke volumes. Industry watchers noted that moments like these can define careers, especially for young actors still finding their footing. For Gal, distancing herself may have been a calculated move to protect her own image, but for Rachel, it was a glaring reminder of just how precarious her position had become. Reports started trickling in that Rachel's future projects were being reconsidered, signaling a potential shift in her career trajectory. One studio insider revealed to a trade outlet that while she was initially in talks for multiple high-profile roles that could have solidified her status as a leading lady in Hollywood, those conversations had significantly slowed down. Executives were reportedly hesitant, questioning whether her current image would resonate with audiences, or if it might alienate them further. There were even whispers of entire marketing teams holding emergency meetings to reevaluate her viability as the face of major campaigns. Could she still anchor a blockbuster? Would audiences flock to theaters to see her, or would they associate her solely with backlash, poor press, and the disappointing box office performance of Snow White? These questions loomed large, casting doubt over her once promising rise in the industry. In Hollywood, perception is everything, and Rachel Zegler's image had undeniably soured. Industry insiders began speculating about the long-term impact this fallout could have on her career. Some pointed out that while talent and charisma can carry an actor far, public goodwill is equally crucial when it comes to sustaining success. Without it, even the most promising stars can find themselves sidelined. The hesitation wasn't just limited to studios. Brands also seemed to be pulling back. Endorsement deals that once seemed like a sure thing were now being quietly shelved as companies grew wary of associating with someone viewed as divisive. It wasn't just about one misstep. It was about how that misstep had spiraled into a full-blown narrative of unrelatability and arrogance. For Rachel, who had been positioned as the fresh new face of Gen Z stardom after her breakout role in West Side Story, the situation felt particularly cruel. Her meteoric rise, fueled by critical acclaim and praise from legendary directors like Spielberg, now seemed to be crashing back down to earth. With each passing day, the path forward appeared more uncertain, raising the question, could she recover? Or would this moment define her career for years to come? Even neutral viewers, who typically stayed out of online drama, began to pile on, criticizing not just the tone of Rachel's comments, but her overall attitude throughout the press tour. Words like smug, entitled, and out of touch flooded every comment section, becoming a relentless wave of negativity that seemed impossible to escape. What made the situation even more painful was the lack of support from those around her in the industry. Unlike many stars who managed to weather public criticism with grace, often leaning on their network of friends, colleagues, or mentors to help them through the storm, Rachel found herself completely alone. There were no public tweets of support from co-stars, no directors stepping up to defend her work ethic or talent, and no heartfelt posts from fellow actresses acknowledging how tough the entertainment industry can be. The silence was deafening, an eerie void where even a single gesture of solidarity would have made a world of difference. But none came. It wasn't just the critics or trolls tearing her down. It was the absence of anyone publicly standing by her side that truly underscored how isolated she had become. This lack of backing didn't just hurt her emotionally, it signaled something much bigger. Hollywood, an industry known for rallying around its own when the chips are down, seemed to have collectively stepped back. For Rachel, this isolation wasn't just personal. It felt professional, as though the entire system that once celebrated her as its rising star had quietly turned its back. And as the days passed without so much as a whisper of defense from anyone close to her, it became clear that the damage wasn't just reputational, it was relational, leaving her adrift in a sea of judgment with no lifeline in sight. In the age of social media, where opinions spread like wildfire and public perception can shift in an instant, one wrong move can change everything. For Rachel Zegler, what was supposed to be her breakout leading role as Snow White, a role that could have cemented her status as a rising Hollywood star, has instead become the defining moment that fractured her public image and, quite possibly, derailed her entire career trajectory. The backlash wasn't just about the movie's poor box office performance. It was about how her words and actions during the press tour alienated audiences, critics, and even industry insiders. Will she recover from this spectacular fall? That remains the million-dollar question. Some stars have bounced back from similar controversies, but it often requires humility, strategic reinvention, and a willingness to rebuild trust with both fans and peers. Only time will tell if Rachel has what it takes to reclaim her place in the spotlight, or if this moment will haunt her for years to come. For now, Rachel Zegler stands as a cautionary tale in Hollywood, a stark reminder that the spotlight can be both a blessing and a curse. It has the power to elevate careers overnight, but it also exposes every flaw, misstep, and miscalculation in ways that can be devastatingly permanent. As audiences grow more vocal and discerning, celebrities are learning the hard way that success isn't just about talent. It's about navigating the delicate balance between staying authentic and respecting the weight of legacy.